Hello, 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 and welcome. We are elated that you are here. Where is here? Of course, you know it is our weekly Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry broadcast. I am Chelselia Cookie Payne, founder of Pain and Glory Incorporated and the administrator of this particular initiative, Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry. I am honored that you guys are here on tonight. We're in for a special treat as we are every single week. If this is your first time being with us, or if you've been with us plenty of times, welcome. We welcome you for this to this experience. We welcome you to be a part of the conversation. We welcome you on tonight. Thank you for being here on tonight. Listen, we are going to dive right in like we do every week. You'll hear from me again at the end because I'm definitely going to share with you what's coming up because I'm super excited about that. You may already know what I'm going to tell you, but that'll come at the end. But listen, we are going to be talking about something that is very, very important that sometimes gets overlooked. We know that in the times that we're living in, we look to who we deem to be the strong one in the household. We look at. I posted the other day when little boys are small, we tell them, be a big boy. Big boys don't cry, and then when they become adolescents, they're told things like, especially if there is not an adult male in the home, they're told you're the man of the house now, or things like man up, and then when they become men and have families, then the weight and the responsibility of being a husband, a father, or whatever the case may be. And that's a responsibility that oftentimes it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that part is a bad thing, but what I am saying is that sometimes, oftentimes, most times, there has to be a space where they can be human. And so we asked the question tonight to the men, how are you doing? And we're going to talk about faith and mental health from the male perspective. And so I'm so honored to have with us our special guest, Mr. Jim Schippers. Let me tell you just a little bit about our guest before I fully introduce him to you and bring him to the forefront. Jim Schippers has been a volunteer for NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, serving as a facilitator, a speaker, and mental health advocate since the spring of 2018. NAMI, if you didn't already know, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, and it was established in 1979. He has presented to the Covenant House, Community Friendship Center, DeKalb County Correctional Program, and the Georgia Crisis Intervention Team, which is the CIT, which is a state training course which provides, this is important, law enforcement officers and other public safety personnel with the skills and to assist people with mental illness. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Bill Schippers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Jim Schippers. It just
You know what? My husband's name is James, so it just kind of flowed really easy. So Jim Schippers just kind of came easy to me.
you got listen. You gotta laugh. And that's
Yes,
fine.
yes,
You did that on purpose so we can get a good laugh. And then
that's right.
everything is going to go
Hey,
just so
let's call it
beautifully.
that. Well, Jim, I'm so
That's
happy
okay.
that you're here. I'm so happy that we have this opportunity to have this chat, this discussion. As I said, it really is important, important enough to really discuss and bring to the forefront. And so when you and I talked, we had the opportunity to kind of lay the foundation, if you would. So I'm gonna turn it over to you to kind of take us back because we're talking about, faith and mental health from the male perspective. And I want to hear from you, like start us from little Jim and kind of bring us forward as it pertains to, commingling or having the understanding of faith and mental health from a male perspective.
Okay, yeah. So, little boy, right? As a little boy. Okay. So, as a little boy, I grew up in a house. In that generation, you have, the male figure was a very, kind of a quiet, macho, kind of image, and there really wasn't any other image. I mean, in my world, there was no other image. My dad was a baseball player, professional baseball player, and he wasn't very communicative, during the week at all. But um, so it was difficult for him to communicate, and I think a lot of that was because of that image that he had to uphold. Anyway, growing up in that environment, I myself, I have two brothers. Let's put it this way: I've got two brothers, three in all, right? Each of us is different, and each of us, we're all unique. We're all individuals. We all have our own self. We're not all type A male personalities, dynamos. We're just not that way. And it's okay not to be that way. But anyway, so my two brothers were kind of like that. I myself was a little bit more laid back, I guess sensitive, however you want to put it. I didn't feel like I belonged in this environment, although I played ball and I did this and that, but I wasn't like my dad, or let's put it this way. I put him up on the highest of pedestals. He was a god to me, and that was the only image I had. And if I fell short of that, I felt that I failed in a certain way. The mental health issue, Cookie, it began when I was in 7th or 8th grade, where I guess the hormones were going, or whatever the case may be. But I started to experience, an unyielding anxiety accompanied by a a depression that was inexplicable. I just couldn't understand it, because I was just slow. I couldn't think straight. I was just dumbfounded by this, and I didn't understand why. And of course, I wouldn't understand why at that age. So at that time, my self-esteem took a shot, because I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? This is what was wrong with me. I mean, I understand it. So it became one of those, I'm not good enough. I'm not this, I'm not that. Why can't I do the things that I know I can do, but I can't do? It must be me. And ironically, I just say all of this again, the mental health issue, my father dealt with the same thing. He had just, again, inexplicable anxiety and depression throughout his entire life. Baseball, he was a good athlete. God him through that. God gave him that ability. It got through that. But as a father, he didn't know how to handle it, so he self-medicated. On Saturdays, he would drink all day long, and this went on for 20 years. Now, at that time, when I was younger, I was like, Dad, what are you doing? I couldn't understand why was he acting this way, and so on and so forth. But as we grew on and got to know each other even better, we both realized we shared the same thing. And we can share things that nobody else could share, because our experiences are so different and unique. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit too much. Hopefully, I'm somewhat
I do have
answering.
a question for you. Well,
Please.
yes, you did. you said a few things that I think that people often overlook or don't give thought to, or don't. That's not even the right term I want to use. Don't know to look at, and that is something you said about the fact that your father had suffered with the same issues years prior. 4 years prior to you. Here you were a young child, and on into adolescence rather, and not knowing at all that this was something that your father dealt with, and of course, even no matter the generation, it really it speaks to the fact that we don't really talk about you know what we're dealing with, because you know sometimes we don't have the verbiage behind what it is, or we don't want to feel like we're different, or people will look at us differently. But I like something that you said when you said you and your father had the opportunity to find out or to share that you both were experiencing the same thing. Um, at what age were you approximately when you all had this epiphany?
Well, it was, my father passed away last year.
Oh
So
my.
it was about, and thank you. And I think it was really over the last 6, 7 years life
So you were an
that so
adult.
much,
This was not something that happened years ago. This was recent years.
yeah.
This wasn't.
And here's the interesting thing though, Cookie, is that he told me when I was 18 or whatever and going off on my own and whatever, Jim, you have what I have, right? And I wasn't sure what, well, I kind of understood. I mean, all I saw in him was that he just was drinking. He wasn't violent or anything like that, but I didn't understand he was self-medicating. I didn't understand what he was at the time, but he would say, "You have what I have," and I was, I was angry. I said, "There's no way I want that. There is no way I want to be like you. Inside, internally, I don't have it, and you're not going to tell me that."
The
And
same person that you held on a pedestal. That's interesting that you would note that. The same person, like you said, a great athlete, well known, probably well loved, and you had him on a pedestal. But then here you are at the age of 18, becoming, in the eyes of everyone, a man. Now you're like, no, I don't want that.
see, that's right. And the thing is, no, I knew that internally. I don't want to be like that. I guess they call it the toxic male. I don't know. That's the word. But the toxic male. I don't want to. I never wanted to be like that. However, it was so in me, the culture and everything, that what happened is that I felt that I failed in attaining that idol, that image, which just led to more depression on top of the chemical that I was going through as well, which is exacerbated.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And then you said something. I'm loving this because you said something else that's very key, because you targeted something specific, and the words that you used were chemical imbalance. I think a lot of times when people
Yeah,
hear the word depression, or when they hear anxiety, they there's such stigma surrounding mental health as it is. And so um, when people hear depression or anxiety, a lot of times people go to one particular thing, something happened, or but it's important to note that there is a very real thing called chemical imbalance that is
there
something
is
you're
no
dealing
doubt
with.
about it. There
Oh
is no,
my
and
goodness.
it took me years to understand that that was true. And because of this and everything else. But, as the Lord opens up my mind and then clarifies things, and through His grace, I am now to the point where it was absolutely, for me, it's not for everyone, but I have, physical chemical imbalance. And it explains a lot of things. It explains a
It
lot of
explains
things.
a lot.
Yes, it
Yes,
does.
sir.
And I think there's a,
It
and the
explains a
man,
lot.
and I'm not saying that, the woman, I mean, the lady probably goes, it's different, right? We're men and women, so we go through it differently. But whatever it is, we all have our different version of, or what pride is, right? You have your pride, I got my pride. And to have that, and the stigma behind that, and the cultural expectations that our culture has, it's difficult. It's really
It's
difficult.
difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And you know what, when you spoke about, the cultural aspect of it, when we talk about, because we are talking about faith and mental health, you know, it's important to note that, you know, being in church or in ministry, or being a person who is a believer, oftentimes the stigma is yet there. It is so prevalent because, your faith is challenged because you have a chemical imbalance, or you have an environmental issue, or whatever is the cause for the mental health issue. It's there. But the same stigma does not present itself when a person has cancer, or high blood pressure, or um, a broken arm, right? Everything has a reason and a cause, right? A smoker, you have
Right.
lung cancer, we get it, right? If you have a
Diabetes.
diabetes, if either it's genetic, or it's your diet and exercise. But when it comes to mental health, chemical imbalance, you know that then it's a faith issue, and that is so unfortunate, because a lot of times people don't get or seek out the help that they so desperately need, because they feel like, as you said earlier, something must be wrong with me, and that's not the case. That is not the case.
Yeah, and then you have a tendency to. I mean, what I did was isolate. That was my
Right.
defensive way of dealing with it. Was just isolate, avoid, so on.
Wow.
But on my journey, though, I must say, though, without my faith, I mean, it's just, yes, I asked the questions. Why did I have to go through that? I'm a good guy. I've done whatever. You ask all those questions, and maybe I wouldn't have asked them otherwise, right? And all I can say is that I know it sounds crazy, but I wouldn't have changed anything, um, because I am so much closer to Him, to Christ.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can I say
Exactly.
that? Can I say Christ on this?
Absolutely. This is Pain
I
and
hope.
Pews Mental Health and Ministry. This is a ministry, and trust me, we are believers. So yes, we yes indeed.
Well,
Yes
and
indeed.
it's good. Thank you, because that is very much a part of me, and it is what and it. I sense it. It has changed me. It is changing me, and it's a beautiful thing. So I don't know if I would have gotten there otherwise. You know.
And I'm typing in right now. Faith plays a big part of recovery, and it really does. We are on a recovery journey
Yes.
every day of our life, and we're on a faith journey every day of our lives. So they are definitely intertwined. And so from the male perspective, I like so many aspects of what you said. When you talked about the toxic masculinity, but mainly what caught my attention was just there in your household. There literally just was a lot of testosterone. You got a professional athlete as a dad. You got your brothers.
Yeah.
You got all this testosterone around you, and then there's not that many men now present day, so I can imagine you as a youth, that are really speaking up and speaking out about mental health and the challenges faced by men and mental health. Now you can close your eyes. You can go on social media, close your eyes, and just click 3 good times, and you'll find something for women. I don't care, and it doesn't necessarily have to say mental health, but it's something about self care. You can find something about, women's empowerment. Women, let's get together and chat. Let's get together and talk. This pain in the pews. Although pain in the pews is not gender specific. My organization, Pain and Glory, was founded for women, right? But not Pain in the Pews. That's a separate initiative under Pain and Glory. But you can literally go on any social media platform, close your eyes, and just touch anything, and you can come up with something for women that is supportive, that is encouraging, that is uplifting, that probably talks about mental health. But for men, it's about money, how to manage wealth, how to get out of debt, which is nothing wrong with any of that. I'm not saying anything's wrong
No,
with
but
that.
yeah, I get you. Yeah.
Yeah, there when where is the soft place for men to land to be able to talk about? Listen, this that's going on right now, it's a lot, and sometimes it's too much, right? When do the men get an opportunity to say, like you said, I'm dealing with something. Like you were saying when you were younger, I can't really. I have an idea of what it is, but I don't have a name behind it. To let them know it's okay to go to a therapist and talk it out, right? I applaud you for even the work that you do now. Let's get to that, because what
Yeah.
got you to? How did you even get to going from Jim, the little boy who was dealing with anxiety and depression, and then Jim, the adolescent who's figuring this thing out, to now Jim, the advocate, the speaker, the one who's working with. How did you get there?
Well, I mean, it's, and I'm not saying this glibly, but it's, it really is God's grace, and it really is. But I mean, to explain it, as I was going through high school, as I was going through college, I made it through college, and again, dealing with this, I would have episodes which just, was just very, very difficult. But the thing is that I always came back. I knew, because you're not depressed all the time. You're not anxious all the time. It's there. So the
Right,
anxiety was pretty much there all the time. But so there are times where you're performing up to where you think you can perform, and even better. You can do better. You know it,
right,
but this is in the way.
right,
But thank God, I mean, that I had willpower to keep on trying. I never accepted it. I never accepted it. And I remember I was in college. I made the baseball team, and then I went out, and for whatever reason, I couldn't perform on the baseball field. I just couldn't. It was the 80s stuff, and that led to a super depression. Nothing I would do to myself, but I couldn't get up out of bed and all that stuff, and it was awful. But the next semester, the next year, I went out for the team again, and I made it. So I didn't give up. I made the team again. I played college baseball. I just didn't give up. I remember there was a whole semester where I was suffering through this depression and everything, and I ended up but I was committed, and I ended up making the dean's list and everything. So there's something in me, and I think, and I'm not, it's God's, because it was His strength. He kept me going,
hmm,
but I cooperated too. I mean,
yeah,
it's, so I feel,
yeah,
because we have to feel, every man, woman, we got to feel good about ourselves,
right,
and
right,
and so now I look back at that, and I'm like, man, I good job, Jim. Good
Good
job.
job.
And I feel good. I feel good about myself. And then I just, again, I was suffering through it, but I ended up getting married. I have three beautiful children. After 23 years of marriage, we got a divorce. Um, but during those years, and again, the chemical imbalance, I never drank. I didn't do any of that because I learned from what doesn't work. Learned, I just accepted it, well, I never accepted it, but I realized, the only thing I can do really well is to love my children, to encourage them, to be maybe what I didn't get. So thank you, Dad, right?
Right, right.
That's God's, because it's God's. So, and that taught me also to know for a fact, as a truth, that no matter what you go through, no matter what horror, no, whatever you go through, God will turn that around if you let Him.
If you let him, yes, indeed.
If you get that attitude where it's God, you're going to take care of you. You may feel like you're here and there and everywhere, but He will turn it around, and that's the hope. So that's where I am now. I guess it's the long and short of it, Cookie. To
Yes,
answer that
sir. Yes,
question.
sir. And that's what helped you to get started with NAMI. What helped you to kind of get involved with the work that they were doing?
Well, yeah, I'm learning to not only cope with it, but thrive now in life. The thriving that I've always wanted to do when I was younger, but so right now, given I've been on the same medication for 11 years. It took many years to even get the right medication, but I've been on the same for 11 years. I know the divorce after 23 years, and the last 6 years I've been mostly, I've been kind of in a nice quiet area where now my kids are older. They're out and we're very close, me and my children. But I had time
That's
to
good.
really pursue my faith, and and now I want to give that back. I want to give back. I mean, for
Yeah.
real. I mean,
Yeah.
because I feel it, I sense it. I sense the He is doing in my life, and I want to give that to others. And I tried to do that even in while I was coaching baseball. I was all this stuff. I was a head coach for years, and what I learned was that when I was coaching, I was looking for those kids that had what I thought was a difficulty, but they maybe not understand. So I tried to be encouraging. I wanted to be encouraging. It's part of my personality, it just
Right.
is. I like it. But so I was able to be sensitive. My arms get a little crazy but I was able to be more sensitive to their needs. And that's another grace that God gave me through all the pain. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yes. So let me ask you this. Now, generationally, um, first with your father, where when you two had the discussion and having an understanding that you all were dealing with the same thing, did your father seek any kind of counseling, or did he get, as you were talking about a moment ago, about the medication that you are on, was he able to, before passing away, was he able to seek after the same kind of help as you did? And
yeah,
a
and
follow
the
up to
irony.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say,
Go
in
ahead, please.
conjunction with that, have had I'm sure that you've talked to your children about mental health. I'm certain because you're an advocate. So I'm wondering, have you, in your ability to be, in your words, more sensitive and more attuned, have you tried to look out, or have you noticed, or at all, anything in your children that you kind of steered them in a way where they would know that it's okay to get help, and if in fact that was a need.
Yeah.
Two different
No,
generations.
those are Yes, they're wonderful questions, and it's interesting. My father, after he retired, he was softening up a little bit, whatever, but we would talk about these things, and I would share my experience, and I became very close, and just love him to death. It was just a wonderful thing. But he would, was helping him, because he was having those depressions, and just, I mean, he was having a difficult time. So I ended up helping him, suggesting that he go to a counselor, and he did. Okay. And then really liked the counselor. Maybe because the counselor was cute. She was a pretty woman.
Oh, so, my.
My father. But no, it was more than that, certainly. But she suggested some medication, and I suggested too the medication, and that was a big thing for him to get over. So he gets on the medication, and and he says, "Jim, I wish I've done this 40 years ago.
Oh,
wish I did this 40 years ago." I said, "Pop, I got it." But see, we could understand each other, and see. And I remember this is maybe 2 years ago, and he said, "Jim, when I was 8, whatever, 9, I remember walking in the room, and there he was on the couch, and he was like out of it, what was going on in his head." And so he brought that up, and he said, that was part of what I was dealing with. And he said the thing that scared him the most, that gave him the greatest fear, was the fact that he wouldn't be able to support his family because of this. And could identify completely with that. Now, I worked most of the time. Thankfully, I was able to work and get through it. But there were, little periods here and there, a year, and that was it. But I understand that feeling. And we both understood it, and we were still able to get through it. We both it was just very special, and faith also was.
Absolutely, and I think that it's important. Definitely, I think it's important to note, that there are so many men who are carrying the weight that you spoke of. Worrying, and concerned, anxious about, being able to provide for their family in the midst of, and it could very well be a physical malady. It could be that they're dealing with a health issue, but that health issue, as I've heard people say over and over and over, has led to bouts of depression because they're dealing with a chronic illness. Now, they're having to, worry about how the bills are going to be paid because of the chronic illness. The chronic illness then, pushes them into a depression. And so, and I've heard men say this, not just a man, I've heard men say this, that they don't have time to be depressed, when actually that's exactly what's going on. I don't have time to be off work. I don't have time to, but at the same time, not wanting to get out of bed, not eating properly, not caring for themselves properly, and not, fully understanding, that depression has so many different looks. It's not just the things I just said. There are so many other ways that it exhibits itself. Anxiety does not always look like, someone who is just all over the place or having a panic attack. Anxiety can look like someone who's extremely busy, who's always got to be doing something. Anxiety does not have, it's not one-sided. Depression is not one-sided, but in what I've seen is that men aren't given the same space for that to even be recognized, because as I said at the top of this segment, is that we sometimes forget that you guys are human, and so all we see is the S on your chest, that you're Superman, and the cape that you wear, the provider, and the one who has the answer, and the one who kills the bugs, and the one that does all the stuff for us.
We're very good at killing bugs.
But there's the other side. There's and excellent example you just gave, and I don't even think you meant to give it as an example, but it was an excellent one. Is that there are two sides to divorce? That but we don't really talk. Like I said, you can go on social media and do 3 clicks, and you've got something for women all over the place. But we don't usually talk about the men in divorce, how the men are faring, how they're doing. Like the segment says, how are you doing? Right? We don't discuss, you know, uh, we don't want to accept the fact that men have emotions. What? Can you believe it? Men are actually human beings with human emotions that go through things. But we kind of push that to the side, and we look at you know only one side. And so I think that some of the things that you have said has been wonderful. I see that one of the comments that has come up, I agreed wholeheartedly. It says, "What a beautiful testimony of a father and son helping each other through challenges." That is so true. That is definitely a beautiful testimony, and how through that, the your faith in God and your trust in Him, and as you said earlier, your cooperation. I like that. Your cooperation with the process, because God is not going to force us to do anything. He'll get our attention,
No,
but He
no, we won't.
force us. And like you said a moment ago,
That would be
your
easy. That would be
that
easy.
would be too easy. Right, right. But your cooperation with the process, he gave you the resources and the tools, and now what are you going to do with it? He gave you your faith, he gave you the tools to use, he gave you organizations, and I'm certain people around you, even if it was just one, even if it was the cute therapist, even if it was just one that pushed
Whatever it
you,
takes. Yeah.
whatever it takes to push you in the right direction. I love it. So let me ask you this. If someone is interested in getting more information about NAMI and how they can, because NAMI offers, let me back up one. NAMI offers so many different wonderful tools. They offer group sessions. They offer so many different things that help people, whether you are a caregiver of someone who has a mental health challenge, or if you're a person who is wanting to tell your story. You want to learn how to tell your story. They have the ways for you to do that. If you need support, if you need help, you need any counseling, referrals, all this fun stuff. And I say fun stuff, all this wonderful stuff that's offered through NAMI. How can they, someone who's interested, how can they connect and be a part of what, get the help that they're needing, that you expressed, that you were able to get yourself?
Well, yeah, I think it's, and I'll give you an example because I think it works best. A good friend of mine, Dan, um, ends up, I met him a few years ago, and he ends up that he has a son who was exhibiting kind of a mental health problems. Like, turns out it was bipolar. And Dan, of course, I mean, he's a tough Irishman. He grew up in New York City. Okay, he was a tough guy. Whatever. He had that kind of way about him, but a lovely man. He's a good man. And he was like, I don't know how to handle this. I just don't handle it. And I just, again, I just got into his life, and God brought that together. And I introduced him to NAMI. I just said, just go to the website, the NAMI, National Association of National Alliance of Mental Illness, and go to the website. And I did him along. But the thing that I think I felt, and I knew it had to be the Holy Spirit, right? But I felt that I was able to, because I know what his son Wells, is his name, was going through, and so I can give him a perspective that could. And how does that happen, right? That only God could have brought that, me
Yeah.
into Dan's life, and and we're very, very good friends. I mean, right now. But yeah, so it's go to the site. They have, especially right. He had no idea how to deal with it, and he was trying hard to deal with it. He was doing his best, but it wasn't working. But as a caregiver, you can get into groups, other caregivers who have been through it, let's say, and those people who have been through it, those caregivers, Dan's situation a year earlier, can give Dan advice on how to deal with it, and it's really it's there. NAMI does that, and that, I mean, that the program it's rock solid, and it is, it's really the general. It's just me and you. I mean, people like you and me out there doing what we can to help, and that's where I would go. Just go to the website, and you'll see a lot of different things. Because people, you don't know much about bipolar. You don't even know what is this? How come my son or daughter is acting this way? Why is he all depressed? And so you're, as a parent, you love them, you want to do your best, but you have no how. How do you do it? This is a good organization to go to.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. The staff there is amazing. I'm telling you, NAMI.org is on your screen. I'm definitely connected to NAMI Cobb. I live here in Cobb County. So, and those of you who aren't in Georgia, you don't know what Cobb County is, but it's the county that I'm in. But NAMI Cobb is wonderful. But if overall, just go to NAMI.org and you'll get the information there. Listen, Jim, thank you so much for having this conversation with me, because listen, it's important that we remember that men, you all count, and that you all, faith and mental health go hand in hand. And so we don't want to negate the fact that we want to stop. When you and I talked the other day, I gave the example, when we ask men, how you doing? And you keep walking. You don't even wait to find out their answer. But men, we want to know, men, how are you doing? And so, Jim, thank you so much for joining with me on tonight. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight. You guys that are tuned in, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay, do yourselves a favor. Go to NAMI.org. There is so much information out there, so many resources, so much information and support, right? That's, it's important, on this journey, whether you're a caregiver or if you're a person yourself that is dealing with a mental health issue. Listen, go to NAMI.org and you'll find, I'll be surprised if you didn't find what you're looking for. I would be totally surprised. But Jim, thank you so much for being with us on tonight. Listen, guys, as I said, I was going to share with you some things that are coming up. A major thing that's coming up. Listen, September 25th is our 7th annual Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry Conference. This year, the theme is There's Hope, There's Help. We have 5 amazing speakers that are lined up. It is a hybrid event, which means we're going to have a small in-person gathering and the rest is going to be streamed live. So you don't have to worry about, if you're not here locally or can't make, because listen, once the in-person location is filled, because it will be COVID friendly. So there's not going to be a lot of space. It's not a big venue. It's very small. However, if you don't make it in those doors, listen, the doors of your home are wide open for you to attend. So listen, I want you to go over to the site to register. It's absolutely free. Can you believe it? That's banankers. Absolutely free. Go to www.2021PITPCONF, which stands for Pain in the Pews Conference, .eventbrite.com. And I want you to register. If you want to donate to us to help us in our ongoing efforts, there is a place on there for you to donate on that registration link. So go to 2021PITPCONF.eventbrite.com. If in fact you want to donate on tonight, We welcome your donations to help us further our initiative here, not only with Pain in the Pews, but we also have the Priscilla Bell Jackson Caregivers Fund, where we actually, our endeavor is to help caregivers. And 2020, if it did nothing else, it flooded us with more caregivers, people who are caring for their loved ones, their elder parents, or either people who have become ill. So caregivers, listen, has the number of caregivers has definitely increased. Plus the things that we're doing here within the Pain in the Pews platform. So definitely feel free to donate. You can do that via Cash App or via PayPal. So the information is there on your screen. Again, we thank you so much for being a part of this week's Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry. Listen, don't forget, go over to NAMI.org. Listen, there's help. The theme that we have this year is not by chance. There's help, there's hope, and we want you to know that. We want you to be able to go to places like NAMI.org and get the help that you need. Listen, I will see you again next week, where we'll have yet another amazing guest like our friend Jim here, that's going to give us some more information. Because listen, we're Pain in the Pews Mental Health and Ministry. We want to bridge the gap between the faith and mental health communities. And that's going to be one Monday at a time. Jim, don't go anywhere. Listen, you guys, have an amazing Monday, and we'll see you next week.